Your kids aren't waiting until the chapter ends to read it. They're reading it right now, page by page, day by day.
Most men don't fail loudly. They just stop noticing the gap between who they said they'd be and who they became. This is where that gap gets named. This is the Revolutionary Man. Our last episode was about what's already been written, the transmission that happened across years, the conclusions that formed during the window when you were the primary evidence. That document exists, and it's settled, and so we're not going to reopen it today. Here's what we are going to open. The chapter that's being written right now and in the moment. Because the record didn't close when the functional conclusions were formed. It keeps going, and it's going right now. And the people in your life aren't waiting until the chapter ends to read it. They're reading it as it is being written, page by page, day by day. And so this episode is about what the current chapter says, not what it said, what it's actually saying. So here's something that's easy to miss after a conversation like we just had in the previous episode. You hear about what's already been transmitted, what's already been concluded, and the natural move. Almost automatic for men like you, it's to locate the cost somewhere in the past. To let accounting become history. To hear it's already happened and then quietly file it as something that's behind you now. That filing is a mistake, because the chapter that produced those conclusions wasn't the last chapter. It was the chapter that set the foundation. And the chapters since then, including this one, the one you're currently living, those are being read right now by the same people who formed those conclusions. And here's what makes the current chapter matter in a way that the past ones don't. The past chapters established a pattern. The current chapter answers a different question. Not, what does this man do when he's busy and distracted and building something? That question got answered. Your kids have that answer. The question that the current chapter is answering is sharper. It is this: now that he sees it, what does he do? Because they know that you've seen it. Not because you told them, but because men who are running the pattern that they've observed in you don't stay invisible forever. The distance, the managed presence, the gap between what you say matters and what gets your best, that's not invisible to people who've been in proximity of you for years. They've seen it, and now they're watching what a man does when he sees something that needs to change. That's the question today's chapter is answering, in real time and without a draft. And so here's what makes that question different from everything else that we've talked about in these first two acts. In Act 1, you saw the gap. In Act 2, you saw that you authored it. Both of those were questions about the past, about a record that already existed. This question is live. It's being answered right now in this season by what today actually looks like. And the people reading it aren't waiting for the chapter to end before forming their impression. They're forming it from what this week looks like, from what last Tuesday felt like, from whether anything that was operating in a certain way 6 months ago is operating differently today. That's a different kind of pressure, that recognition or friction. Recognition said, look at the gap. Friction said, you authored it. The current chapter says, they're watching what you do with that information right now, and they're not telling you what they're reading. They're just reading. What is the current chapter saying about what a man does when he sees something that needs to change? So let's be specific about what the present chapter contains. Let's not be vague. We're going to get specific here. It contains evidence about whether insight moves him. Your kids have a working model of how you respond to difficulty. They built that model from years of watching you navigate professional challenges with precision and the personal ones with some distance. That model is already formed. In the last episode, we covered that. But the current chapter is adding something to it. It's adding the answer to whether the pattern is fixed or whether it's moving. Whether a man who built a certain way of operating can see that clearly enough to operate differently. Every day that the gap remains after the seeing, and at some level the seeing has been there for a while, today's entry answers that question in one direction. Every day is a data point, and the data points are accumulating in real time. It contains evidence about what this season of his life looks like up close. Your kids are at specific ages right now, not abstract ages, the actual ages that they are today. And the version of you that's present in this season, the quality of attention you bring, the depth of engagement you offer, what you're willing to put down to be genuinely there, that's being experienced right now. Not remembered from years ago, but experienced today. And what they're experiencing in this chapter is what this season of their life with you actually feels like from the inside. Not what you intend it to feel like, but what it feels like. And there's a difference between those two things that's worth sitting with. Because intention lives in your head. Experience lives in theirs. And the chapter being written right now is the one that they're experiencing, not the one you're intending. It contains evidence about what matters enough for change. This is the entry point most men don't want to look at directly. Because what you're willing to change for, genuinely change, not intend to change, is a precise signal of what you've actually decided matters. You've changed things before. When the business required it, when the professional stakes were high enough, when the cost of not changing was visible and immediate enough that staying the same just wasn't an option. The current chapter is recording whether the people closest to you meet that threshold, whether they constitute stakes high enough for you to move. That's not a comfortable thing to read, but that's what's being written. And what does today's evidence say about whether insight has moved anything? And who is reading that answer right now? There's a question your kids are sitting with that they haven't asked you directly. They may not have words for it, and it may not even be conscious, but it's there, and it's in a way questions form in people who've been watching something they love navigate something important. The question is he going to be different? Not different someday in the abstract, different now, in this chapter, in this season, with us, and every day. Without any of you saying a word about it, that question gets answered. The answer isn't delivered in a conversation, it's delivered in the texture of ordinary days, in whether the quality of your presence has shifted, in whether what was previously unavailable has become available, in whether that man they've observed operating a certain way for years is operating differently now. That's what a chapter is. Not a dramatic turn, not a declaration. Just the texture of ordinary days adding up to evidence. And right now, today, the ordinary days, they're adding up. The chapter is being written, and the answer is being delivered, day by day, without announcement. And it is either a yes or a no. He's different now, or he isn't. There's no third answer. And the people reading this chapter aren't waiting for the end to form an impression. They're forming it now. From what today looks like, from what this week felt like, from whether anything that was true 6 months ago is measurably different today. So it's worth understanding what that reading process feels like from their side. They're not analyzing you, and they're not keeping a formal tally. They've just been living alongside you, and the living is the reading. Every morning that starts the same way as the one before it is a page. Every evening that lands the same way is a page. Every moment where something different could have happened and didn't, that's a page too. None of those pages arrive with labels, and none of them announce themselves as evidence. They just accumulate, and at some point that accumulation becomes a conclusion. Not stated, not discussed, just held. That's the cost of the present chapter, not what it will say when it ends, what it is saying while it's open. So what is the answer the current chapter is delivering, day by day, without announcement, to the people who are reading it now? And here's the specific cost of the chapter being written in the moment. It's not the same cost as the past chapters. Past chapters establish foundations, conclusions that are now structural, load-bearing, shaping how your kids understand men and manhood and what is expected from people who claim to say they love them. That cost was paid across years. The cost of the present chapter is different. It's paid in a single currency, present. Your kids are at ages they will never be again, not in 5 years, but now. The relationship available with them at these specific ages, The version of you that could be experiencing in this season, the depth of knowing what's possible right now, that's a present tense resource that's being spent one way or another. There's no neutral spending. Every day, it either goes towards presence or towards distance, toward a chapter that says something or toward a chapter that says nothing. And the spending is happening right now, today, regardless of whether you're thinking about it. So what makes this present chapter specific cost is precisely that it's not yet settled. See, the last episode was about what's already done. This is about what's still being done, which means it's only part of the legacy cost that's still in motion. The only part where what happens next is genuinely open. And that openness is not comfort. It's weight. Because the open means the current chapter can still go either way. And going either way requires something from you right now. Not someday, but right now. High-performing men are skilled at converting awareness into planning. You see a problem clearly, you build a response, and then you execute. That capacity has served you in every domain where the problem sits outside of yourself. But the present chapter isn't a problem that responds to planning. It responds to presence. And presence isn't something you schedule into the next quarter. It's something you either bring today or you don't. The chapter records which one it is, not your intention. Which one actually showed up? What is the present chapter costing? Today, in this season? That won't be available to be spent again. The chapter we're reading right now doesn't have a title yet. That gets decided by what's in it, by what the ordinary days add up to, by what the texture of this season says about whether anything moved after the seeing. You don't get to write the title in advance. You only get to write the pages. And the pages are being written today. This one and the one after it, the season your kids are currently living with you as the central figure in it. That's the chapter. And it's open right now. It's not finished. It's not filed. It's open. Which means what gets written next is still being decided. Not a single conversation, not a declaration in the ordinary days. In what today looks like when the cost of the chapter they're carrying from this season are still being determined. That's the weight of this present chapter. Not what it already said, what it's still saying. Band of Brothers, where men stop writing the same chapter alone and start writing a different one with the people who won't let them put the pen down. If you're ready for that, go to therevolutionaryman.com/Band of Brothers and book your orientation call. Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. The cost of staying asleep doesn't wait for you to be ready. Take the Integrity Mirror. It's a 15-minute assessment that shows you exactly which man you've become and what it's costing you. Links in the description below.